So today I'm going to be showing you guys how you can make a clean thumbnail without Photoshop. So the first step in making a clean thumbnail is brainstorming. Now this is probably the most important step because you can't make a thumbnail without any idea of what you're going to do. So usually when I'm brainstorming, I like to look at videos that are similar to mine. So for this video, I'm gonna search up thumbnail tutorials and see if I can get any ideas. So after looking for a bit, I see a lot of them have arrows pointing toward the character or like the finished thumbnail. So now I've got a really good idea for my thumbnail, so let's go get a screenshot. So for the best screenshot, you should use replay mod, but Hypixel's replay system also works. Now I don't know about you guys, but I don't want this trees and grass in my background, so I'm just gonna go up high and put a block up there. It will look coolest if your character's in an action pose, so I'm just gonna jump around up here and see if I can get a good screenshot. So now that you've jumped around a bit, go into the replay file, and if your character is far away, hit B to spectate it. Then slow the speed down to 0.1 because it will make it a lot easier to get a good screenshot. Then hit play and wait until your character goes into a position that you like. Make sure your FOV is 30 and hit F1. Then to take a screenshot, hit F2. So now a box will show up and it's just the settings, and make sure that render name tags is off. And finally, you can hit the take screenshot button. But before we move on to the next step, let me tell you guys why this is a good screenshot. There's room for text, you can see the character clearly, and the character is looking straight at you. Now we're moving on to what is probably the hardest step, editing the photo. So for this step, you'll need Paint.net and Paint 3D. So now, just open up Paint.net. Then open up app data and go to roaming, Minecraft, and then screenshots and drag in your screenshot. Then it'll ask you what you want to do with the file and just hit open. So now you need to go and select your figure. I've got two ways of how you can do this, so you can just choose whichever one you like better. The first method is pretty simple, just grab the lasso select tool and select your character. Now the second method is much easier, but it requires Paint 3D. It's pretty easy, all you need to do is drag in your screenshot and then hit the button that says magic select. Then just drag in your bars until you're happy with it, and then just hit next. It should have selected most of it, but if you're like me and it missed some, just make sure you're on add and then click the spot that it missed. So now you can hit done and then you just need to select it. Then just press Ctrl C and then go back over to Paint.net. Then create a new layer and do Ctrl V. Then you can just drag your character on top of the other one, but you might have to make it a little bit bigger. Now usually I like to add motion blur to my character to make it look more cool. An easy way to do this is by making another layer, copy and pasting your character again, then dragging the character back to the same spot, and then go to Effects, Blurs, and then click Motion Blur, and usually I like to set it to around 80. So then once you have your character blurred, you can just drag this layer behind and it will look like your character has motion blur. So since this tutorial is not using any Photoshop, I kind of want to put a Photoshop logo and then an X over it. So once I found a good Photoshop picture, I just added a new layer and copy and pasted it in. Then I just did the same thing with a red X that I found. Also, sometimes when you try to paste in an image, it will ask you if you want to expand the canvas or keep the canvas size. You should always hit keep canvas size. Okay, so I've got this now and I'm pretty happy with it, but I kind of want to add an arrow pointing toward my character. Okay, so I found this arrow that might work, but it needs a bit of modifying. The first problem is that this arrow is way too curvy, but since I put the arrow on its own layer, I could just select the part that I didn't want and just hit delete. So now I want to make the arrow red, so I'm just going to grab the color picker, go onto the X layer, hit the red X, and then go back onto the layer with the arrow and hit fill, and fill this arrow with red. So now I want to make the arrow look cooler, so all I have to do is go to Effects, Photo, and then Glow, and then set the radius to 20, brightness to -100, and contrast to 100. I did the same thing to the X too. So yeah, that's how I made my thumbnail. So to save your thumbnail, just go to File, and then Save As, and make sure it's saving as a JPEG or PNG instead of a Paint.net file. So if you have something like this and you want to blur the background, just go to Effects, Blurs, and then Motion Blur and set it to around 90. So to add a border, just go to Rectangle Select and make sure you have Ruler on, and then zoom into the top left corner and then go to 2020. Then just drag out that rectangle until you're at 1900 and 1060. Once you've done that, you can switch over to Gradient Tool and make sure the two colors are black and white. Make sure that the opacity of the white is at 0. And then you can just add a little gradient around the border like I'm doing right now. So now the one thing I didn't show you how to do in the tutorial, but you probably really want, is how to add text. So all you need to do is go in the tools menu, hit T, and usually I use a font called Lemon Milk Medium because I think that it looks really clean. So to type something, just click down wherever you want the word to be, and then you can just type it in. And then to change the color of the font, you can just go to the fill tool, and then make sure you're on white, and just like fill it in.